Rogan is a great example of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I call these people now fake independent media because that's exactly what they are. They're fake independent media. They're not real independent media. You have people like Tim Pool.
What's going on, you guys? Today we have Kyle Kulinski slamming Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is switching up on his audience. Let's get into it.
But Kyle Kulinski went on the Majority Report this morning. Great conversation. Awesome to see some unity among some real hardcore progressives that have kept it real even after the re-election of Donald Trump in November. So do you want to take a look, Zach? I figured this would probably be the best, spiciest portion of the conversation to take a look at, where Emma asks about Kyle's relationship with Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, guys, the one thing I want to preface this with by saying that I obviously, Gavin and I don't speak for Kyle. I do consider him to be like a colleague in this space and somebody that I, do know and have, like, obviously we've talked to him on this broadcast and whatnot, but I am going to do a little bit of armchair psychology. So sorry, Kyle, if you think this is dead wrong. I'm doing my best here, but I really think this is Kyle using Joe Rogan as a way to also address the TYT drama. Kyle is so polite. He's such a nice guy. He's so averse to drama. He just likes to do a show and stay in his own lane and promote progressive politics. But I think that the reality is he doesn't want to talk about what's happening at TYT, but he does kind of want to let everybody know what his opinion on it is. And he talks about the corruption of independent media. And he talks about how just because you're a show that's on the internet doesn't mean that you're somehow independent media, right? And every single criticism that he is about to level during this last portion of the exchange with the Majority Report, it could be 100% applied to Cenk Uygur at the Young Turks. And so while Kyle isn't going to come out here and say it, I'm going to say on Kyle's behalf, this is probably him saying, yeah, this is how I feel about the Young Turks too. He's not going to exclusively apply the standard to Joe Rogan. If he feels this way about Joe Rogan, it's safe to say this is how he also feels about the Young Turks, even if he feels like he doesn't want to get in the muck about it because he knows Cenk will go nuclear and make Kyle have to think about this a lot during the holiday times, which I imagine he doesn't want to do.
Lastly, Kyle, I don't want to keep you too long, but you've been pretty vocal about how you feel Joe Rogan has contributed to a lot of, I would say, the misinformation surrounding Donald Trump, and as just kind of sold out for, like, what was it, a $200 million contract?
And it's difficult whenever you have all of these different content creators, such as like Anna Kasparian, Cenk Uygur, Joe Rogan, and now you even have these newer ones like Danica Patrick, Jillian Michaels. They're just coming into the mix. Everyone is wanting to sell out to this conservative media train, and they're not actually really saying anything at all. They're just wanting to keep their name, far from the woke mob, or far from they're going to always bring up the blue haired. Why didn't the purple hair get some love? Who knows? But I'm just saying they're always wanting to make sure that they are the average Midwest approved. It's very, very old, and it's becoming very stale very quickly.
With Spotify or whatever it is, I would argue that's corporate media, by the way. If you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars for a corporation, it's difficult to call yourself independent at a certain point. Like,
if you're selling steak to investors.
Yeah, right. Like, what is your view of the place that we're at? And part of why I wanted
to... when he says and selling steak to investors, that's a shot at TYT.
Have you on is just like, you're resisting Trump. We are. A lot of other lefty media is doing that too. But I do think, like, there's been capture of the independent space in a way that was not the same when you and I probably both, you before me, but started doing this kind of thing. Rogan is a great example of it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I call these people now fake independent media because that's exactly what they are. They're fake independent media. They're not real independent media. You have people like Tim Pool. You have people like Dave Rubin. I'm sure you saw all that tenant media stuff where Lauren Chen had this tenant media company, and she took money directly from the Russian government, but she ended up giving some of that money to Dave Rubin and giving some of that money to Tim Pool. And Dave Rubin and Tim Pool, I love this, their dodge is, look, we had no idea that was coming from the Russian government. We just thought some shady billionaire gave a bunch of money to tenant media, and then tenant media gave it to us. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? I've been doing this full time since 2012. I've never once had a conversation with a billionaire. I've never once had a conversation with an advertiser. The way that we raise money for our show is Patreon, donations that happen monthly, and Substack. For Crystal, Kyle, and Friends, we do it on Substack. And then outside of that, I just have what I call the default ads on YouTube, where there's this giant buffer, and you know, I have no idea what's coming in and what's going out, etc. That I think is a model that is defensible because I've tried to insulate myself from any malincentives. But if you call yourself independent media and you have $100 million, $200 million contract from Spotify, or you're taking money from shady billionaires left and right, or you're going to companies that contradict your values, your
like Polymarket,
open express value, I'm sorry, that is no longer, you're not just independent media because you happen to be on the internet.
Yeah.
If you have the exact same incentive problems as the people in mainstream media, then you're fake independent media. You're not real independent media. And
I mean, you have guys like Tim Pool saying that they're having meetings with Netanyahu. I mean, this is getting to the point to where the powers that be, they used to be able to control the people through religion. They used to align themselves with religion as the kings and the queens, and now they're aligning themselves with the media. And now that we're shifting from one media source to the other, now that we're going from TV to more internet-based entertainment, you can see that they're right on top of it. The powers that be are right on top of it. They're now aligning themselves with this internet personalities, with whether it's Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, any of these guys, and they're able to put their hand so far into their backs and talk from one dummy to all the others.
I'm now going to war because what we saw is a lot of these people like Joe.
That's such a great point, too. It's like so many people just think that if it's an online show, it's somehow independent or somehow alternative. Like, are you kidding me? Tim Pool was going on and bragging about how it's not uncommon for corporate sponsors to hit him up and offer him $50,000 to $100,000
makes me want to throw up
to do an ad read. It's like, okay, so that makes you even more freaking corporate than a lot of these hosts because they're not even directly getting that money. They're just getting paid by the media company that is being enriched by that advertiser money, but they don't have an actual direct relationship with said sponsor in the way that a guy like Tim Pool absolutely does. So it's incredibly corruptive as a financial in a financial sense. And it's crazy that they still get away with pretending to be, oh, we're different, we're better, we're the antidote to corrupt mainstream media. It's wild that anyone believes that bullshit.
And it used to be after 2016, it was the standard in our space that you were going to just give the middle finger to corporations. Like, I'm not talking about like, oh, there's local coffee roasters in Kansas City and they're like, yo, would you give us a shout out for $20? Like, we're not talking about that. We're talking about which we would never probably do anyway, because we have the same model as Kyle,
like,
right?
I want a bit more than 20.
Right. Well, as an example, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, if somebody was small and they had 100 live viewers and they were like, bro, I get my coffee from my neighborhood roaster. Like, nobody's saying like you can't find a way to make this easier on yourself to do it as a line of work. But once you are dealing with large mega corporations who are really funding you at a large level, at a high scale, right? You cannot call yourself independent. That's what independent means, like viewer funded, right? And I think that the Majority Report even really kind of toes that line, right? Like, are they like they are ad sponsored media? Right. Like, I do think that they have really high ethical standards and all of that, but we do have to examine that and say, yeah, the way that they are functioning is ethical, but it's also a little bit of a different standard than the one that Kyle's holding himself to. That's because Kyle's, for the most part, a one-man band. He does secular talk on his own. We have to have a lot more leeway for like big progressive organizations. I'm not saying TYT couldn't have evolved ethically and responsibly, but the other point we have to talk about is the fact that they at one point didn't need to. Right, they had an actual fan base that was willing to support them, and they could have easily probably afforded Jank and Anna and a dozen other people's employees or salaries, right? If they chose it.
There we have it, you guys. We have Kyle Kulinski slamming Joe Rogan, really slamming any independent media that is in cahoots with the powers that be, with the bourgeois state, the oligarch, whatever you want to call them, just the people that are running the show. And yeah, Joe Rogan is obviously aligning with them. If it's not clear, then, let this be a daily reminder. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, though. It's another day in the progressive way.